This is a video tutorial on how to set up the template for laser cutting the acrylic cover on our desk lamp. Now, you're provided with this template file. This file has got 6 design options for you, so you can produce 6 different designs, enabling you to analyze each of them and modify them and hopefully work with the best design you can produce. Now you'll see that it's made up of several parts. You've got the rectangular outside, which is the overall shape of the acrylic that's going to be cut on the laser cutter. You've got 2 holes at the top here. These are for joining to your aluminium frame. And then you've got 3 lines inside. 2 black lines, which are dashed, and these represent our fold lines. This is where we're going to bend the acrylic on the line bender. And that's where we're going to apply our heat. So 2 separate bends, or that whole bend area. Then you've got a blue line. This blue line is your upper design limit. So keep your design below that blue line so that when we bend it, it doesn't get deformed or twisted out of shape and you don't lose part of your design. The last thing you want to do is put a lot of effort into a really nice design, but part of it be lost because it's above that blue line. When we go to put these, we go to put your final design on the laser cutter, we will remove that blue line beforehand. So let's start by looking at what we can do to our work. I'm going to start by looking at this one down here. I'm going to work with this one for now, but ideally I'd like you to do this to all of your work and experiment, play around a bit. So looking at this one here, we'll notice that we've got some very sharp corners, and laser cut acrylic will cut a perfect 90 degrees and it will be sharp. So a pointed corner on a laser cut piece of acrylic will be sharp and quite dangerous. So we want to remove that. So if I go over to here on the left, the arcs tool, press and hold, I can go to the very end one and I can draw a filleted arc between 2 lines. And I can choose my radius. So I can play around with this radius. I'm going to set 5 now and press OK. And if you didn't see how I got to that, it's the second option down on the right hand side here. Press and hold and you can select other different tools. So I want this end one here. I have a radius of 5, and to use this I'm going to select my first line. If you look up here, you've got instructions to locate contact point on first object approximately. So I'm going to choose this edge here. Then it says locate contact point on second edge approximately. So I'm going to choose this edge here. And it rounds that corner off. And that's a nice radius for this size of work. So I'll do the same one up here. Now I might decide actually I want a larger radius down the bottom. So I'm going to right click on here and change my radius. And I'm going to change this to 10. And I'm going to do the same thing. Click the first side, click the second side. And I've got a larger radius down here. And that can look really, really nice. You'll notice, however, that these lines have come in black because this is the default color when you open the software unless you've told the line to be something different. So I'm going to click on my lines and I'm going to do all 4 at once. So I'm going to right click on the next one to add it to my selection set, and right click on the third one to add it to my selection set, and right click on the 4th one. If I click something else by accident I don't want to change, I can right click on that to deselect it. On the line options, you've got line and then you've got color. Click on the color, choose red, OK. Now you should know by now from my other videos, red is our cut color, black is our engraved color, and green filled in areas are our etch color. So let's use this as our example, and that's how we want all of our work to be set out. I've gone for 5 up here and 10 down there. You might want to do something different. You might choose to do 10mm radius all the way around, like that. And that could look quite good. Alternatively, you might think, actually no, I would like a much smaller radius of 3mm all the way around. And you can have a nice small radius. This is highly dependent on what fits with your design. So if your design is going to need a larger radius, it's going to look better, brilliant. If your design is slightly more angular, then a small radius is better. But a minimum of a 3mm radius is required. So let's look at another thing we can do with this. We've got our design here, our basic design here. Now in my other tutorial video for vectorizing, you'll see me vectorizing an image, and that image can be put onto here as a design logo, and you can have more than one. But we can also manipulate this shape. So to manipulate it, we can do a lot of different things. One of my favorite things to do is using skylines. So if I take a skyline here, I'm going to use the same tools I used in the vectorizing. So bitmap, vectorize bitmap, and I can click on my image, go to monochrome, and I'm going to leave it as that. This is a silhouetted skyline. So there's very little detail in that. It's just the shape, only the shape I want. I'm going to take the fill out. So select it, press up here, fill, and select no fill, and press OK. And I've got a nice skyline design there. I'm going to take this and I'm going to move it over to here, but then I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to copy it. So I've got another one to work from. So if it all goes wrong, I've got a spare one. Remember, save your work regularly. Now I'm going to do this twice. First thing I'm going to do is scale it so it's just a bit smaller than, just a bit bigger than our design. We want it just a little bit bigger. So I've got that, and I'm going to bring it down to about here. Remember that the more material we take off of this, the less we've got to work with on our design. So it might be that I take this one down to about here, and you'll see why I'm doing that in a minute. I'm going to duplicate this, take it over here. Before I position it, I'm going to flip it. So the button on the side here flips it like that. I'm going to take this one, I'm going to do probably that. So still get the skyline and maximize space. Now I could just engrave that design there, and that could look really cool. Alternatively, I could actually cut away this. So I'm going to take these two designs and I'm going to make those lines red, just so they become cut lines, so I know. And I'm going to zoom in. I'm not going to do this from a distance. I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to make sure I can see my work. And this is where I'm going to work. I'm also going to make these red while I'm here. And I won't bother doing the same for these two, and you'll see why in a minute. And we're going to use one of my favorite tools in 2D design, and that's the delete part tool. If you press and hold on delete, the second option is delete part of an object. And this deletes up to the nearest intersection. That's where two lines meet. So I've got my curve coming down here, and I'm going to delete this bit there. And then I'm going to delete this part here. Now this line comes below my design, so I've got to delete those two little bits there. And then I can delete that part there. Delete these little bits here, that part there, and that part there. I can delete these bits I don't need. And I've got a lovely little skyline silhouette along there. Now if I move over to here, I can do the same on this one. I can delete the parts I don't need. I don't actually want this line or these bits here. And it's a tiny little bit just there I can see. I'll try and get that. There we go. And then, oh, I've made a mistake. I've made a big mistake. I've deleted that line there, and I didn't want to do that. Problem with 2D design, I can only go back one step. So that means I've got to delete that and start again. Luckily, I didn't delete any of this bit here. So I'm going to go back to my design. Luckily, I can have a copy. Copy it. I'm going to go back to where I was working, down here. I'm going to have to scale it again. So I should have made a copy of it when I scaled it. When I'm scaling it, by the way, I'm holding Shift and then pressing on the corner and changing the size of it. If I don't do that, if I just press on the corner, I can make it look very, very wrong. So make sure you scale it properly, hold Shift and then press on the corner. So I'll flip that around and I'm going to move that where I want it. So I want it not quite down there, probably about there. So let's make that red again. And let's try again. So I need to get rid of that line there, that line, that line, and that line. That line, that line, that little bit of line there. So now I need to get rid of this line and these lines here. Now you can see I've got that red line there, so I need to get rid of these bits down here. If this is getting fiddly, zoom in. Don't try and make this more complicated than it has to be. Zoom in so you can see what you're doing accurately. So I'm just getting rid of the bits that cross that bottom line. And then I'm maintaining that skyline design. There we go. If I zoom back out now, there's two different options there, two different ways of doing it. Both of these work, and both of these are really effective. My personal preference is this style of design, but this one works really well as well. And what you can also do is you can go to your arcs tool, and 3mm might be a bit too much of a radius for this. We'll find out. It might need to go down to 1mm or 2mm. No, 3mm works there. I can round that bit off there. I don't think 3mm, no, it doesn't work there. You can see it's overlapped. I can undo that, and what I'll do is I can do a 2mm radius, that bit there. And for little bits like that, 2mm is fine. And that gives me a nice rounded edge, and I've got a really fancy design. This doesn't just have to be skyline silhouettes, it could be any shape. The more complex it is, the more likely it is that you're going to have difficulty with some of it. But make sure that you have fun with it and do something creative. So find a really nice image that you can work with. If you've got little windows in your skylines, they're not going to be of any use. They'll just fall out. On this style, they will work. They'll be cut out and they'll look really, really good. On this style, it won't work. So you can have a lot of fun with different types of images and play around with it. So this is how we're going to set up our work. Make sure we're using the arcs tool and the draw a filleted arc between two lines to do the corners to make sure they're safe. Don't manipulate these lines here, leave them alone, and then put your design in. And if I go over here, if you remember, I've got my grumpy cat, which can fit in just nicely on there. That's very nice there. And I've got a grumpy cat on a skyline. All right, good luck.